No. So people, they call you Randall short or Randall?
Randall usually. Yeah, I used to work for a British auto company, and Randy means horny in England, and so I'd introduce myself as Randy Wall. They'd all start laughing. So
Really?
after that, I went back to Randall. Yeah. Meet some girl and say, "Hi, I'm Randy." You know? Yeah.
That's funny.
And they turn red and start laughing at me. So
I bet.
yeah.
Randall. All right, that's cool. Let me get this. Investor. And I know you're in Utah. What city are you in, Randall?
I'm in Sandy, which is the south end of the Salt Lake Valley. So basically, people ask at Salt Lake City, so it's like we're all in the valley. Yeah.
I bet it is. It has to be gorgeous out there.
It's actually quite nice today. It's very sunny and green. We had some rain last night, cleared the air out.
Mm-hmm.
Virginia's beautiful too, right? You're up in Virginia, right?
Yes, it is beautiful here if you like the water.
Yeah.
My friend. So you gotta like the water here because we're surrounded by we're on a peninsula, if you will, that's what they call it. So I mean it's always humid. Our humidity is 100%, like 90.
Yeah.
Pretty much all the time. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I used to live close to the Oregon coast for most of my formative years. So yeah, I know.
Gotcha. Okay, I think thank you for your patience, my friend.
You bet.
Roundup family, greetings. It is your friend, your real estate entrepreneur, Chris Haskins, bringing you another edition of Monday Masters. I got an exciting guest for you today. You know I'm out there grinding for you to fulfill my mission, which is to raise your financial literacy through real estate investing and entrepreneurship. Today I've got Randall Wall out there in Utah. How you doing, my friend?
Doing great, Chris. Happy to be here.
Yeah, good to see you. When I was out, Roundup family, I was out in Denver, hanging out with Brunch. I had an opportunity to hear some stories. This guy's got some stories for you. Good God, the numbers you're doing. Unbelievable. Take me back to 1980s, brother, man. Take me to when you're getting started back in the day. I can only imagine the climate back then.
Well, there weren't any investor associations, hardly any books. I got started after reading Robert Allen's book, How I Turned $1,000 into $10 million in Real Estate.
Gotcha.
And that was my introduction. And so I did my first flip in the late 80s and 88, and then lost $50,000 on my very first one.
Wow.
I was a UPS driver, and so I was hauling sheetrock and materials in the back of my UPS truck over to my flip, and I lost 50 grand. But what was good about it was I was really greedy because I was young, and I was doing two at the same time, and so I made 138,000 on the second one.
To you.
And so it made up for it because otherwise the wife would have said never again, right?
I'm glad you didn't give up. We're going to get to that for our new people. Roundup family, you know how our format is. We're going to do some back and forth with Randall and I for the next 30 minutes. Make sure you put questions in there. Any questions you have, I'm going to go over a lot of topics here very, very quickly because Randall's time is important. But you're a broker out there in Utah too also, right? I
am. I own the largest brokerage in Utah and the 15th largest in the U.S. for production, by production. So,
that's true. I heard you mention it started with the letter B. I mean, I don't even know. A lot of people don't even get to use that frequently.
Yeah.
That's a lot of sales.
A lot of sales. They have about 15,000 transactions and $4.5 billion sales.
Is that for this year already, or is that an average for the year?
That was last year. Yeah, I haven't run all the
Oh,
numbers yet. Yeah. So 2018, we did 4.5 billion in sales and 15,000 transactions.
unbelievable. Yeah, serious numbers. Are you out there hitting this? Are you actively in this stuff, or are you more like people management?
Well, yeah, with with almost 4,000 agents, I have to have other people that help me out. So I'm kind of business ADD. So I've got a management team that handles the overall company. I manage 150 agents myself. I'm flipping 18 houses right now. I'm doing new builds up in Park City in the 2 and 3 million range, and then I've done about 40 wholesales so far this year.
Wow, nice. You grinded.
Yes, that's a good word for it.
Where do you get the grind from, Randall? So much I want to talk to you about. I mean, where did it come from? No, you know, I feel like you've got some grind, and you weren't born with it. I mean, so over time, you've learned some things.
So, sorry, you're breaking up a little bit there, Chris. But you say, where did I get the? It sounded like you asked where I got the enthusiasm or the drive. Was that right?
You know what? You're politically correct when you say enthusiasm and drive. I'm going to call it the grind, though. Is it
Okay.
where I'm at is the grind. So where is
Yeah.
it from?
So imagine 5 brothers and a sister. Your dad's a school teacher. You have no money growing up, and and if you want it, you got to go earn it, right? So I started when I was young. I started working with some guys that I was always big. So I'm 6'4", about 280. I was a little thinner, but I've been 6'4" since the 6th grade. And so I worked for a lot of real estate guys and contractors. And I looked at my dad. My dad had, was a doctorate level teacher and no money. And my grandfathers, we just had a lot of professors and teachers in the family, and none of them had any money. And so
Wow.
I was sick of being poor. I was 14 before I ever had a steak that was big enough. I felt like I had enough.
Beautiful.
And so I just hit it. I didn't want to be poor, and I'd had enough pain to where I decided that it was time to do something. And real estate was a really good way to take care of that pain.
Gotcha. Let me ask you, we have our outline. Do you think that the pain put the promise of the pleasure? I'm thinking, we're motivated by pain and pleasure, right? One of the two.
So pain motivates you more than pleasure. In fact, I just looked at a study that said that about, I think it was 2/3 of all people move away from pain before they'll move towards pleasure.
Mm-hmm.
And for me, it was just, I just didn't want to be frickin' poor.
I got you. Wow, man. I think that speaks a lot because, for me, I'm thinking I worked a job after I graduated. It was grinding. Those 3 months, I remember like it was yesterday, Randall, and I'm like, I would go back to the fact that kind of pushed me to the trajectory of being an entrepreneur. I'm glad you mentioned that. Round up family. Let's do this. So we talked about very briefly, I heard you mention about budgeting renovations, and I consider you an expert. I consider myself an expert. You over budget. And talk to us new people, talk to my new Roundup family members, some people that are scared to make an offer because they need to have those repairs specifically down to the dollar, Randall. How can you help us understand that, how the mentality of that?
Okay, so I stopped counting years ago at 500 remodels, and so I've had a lot of those, and I run over budget on almost all of them, to be honest, but I don't run over a lot. It's usually within 10%.
A lot now, for my viewers, a lot could mean 1,000, it could be 10,000, Randall.
All right, so I'm almost $1 million over on one project right now. So with those, when you're doing the big number projects, the numbers get big,
Real
but
quick.
really quick. But on, let's say, a $300,000 house, I can run over by $20,000 and on a $100,000 budget. So
it typically goes over.
Yeah, typically you're running over. And you're better off running over a little bit, because if you're trying to cross every T and dot every I, you're never going to pull the trigger. And even though I'm running over budget, I'm still making, 60, 70, $100,000 on 350,000 or less properties. And so, if I ran over by $20,000 and instead of making 60,000, I made 40, so what? Or instead of making 80, I made 60, or 100, I made 80. It is what it is. And you want to be pulling the trigger, because if you're never pulling the trigger, then you lost out on the 40 to 60 to 80.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's the key is, when you make your numbers, put your numbers in there, throw 10%, perhaps for, over budget, etc. But be as careful as you can, but you got to pull the trigger. If you don't pull the trigger, you're done. Nothing happens.
Do you see that as well? I see it on a constant basis with my coaching clients, and just with aspiring investors in general, right?
So paralysis by analysis, is really common. And a lot of times it's the guys that don't have anything to lose that do the best, because they pull the trigger. It's the hardest ones for me are engineers.
Oh my Lord, yes. Oh my goodness.
They want to cross every T twice and dot every I 3 times. And they don't do very well in this business. Out of every 10 that I've worked with, I've had one that maybe was capable and was able to be successful at it.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, you got to pull the trigger, and then the more you pull the trigger, the more deals you do, the easier it becomes to run your numbers, because then you're looking at, this project looks just like that project, so this is the range that I should be in as far as my numbers.
Gotcha. It's funny you mentioned engineers. I remember back when I was courting some engineers, I decided not to do the. I'm like, if you want this budget to be down to the dollar, not the guy you're looking to do the.
No.
They're good. They're good. I find out they're good lenders though, because they they invest in your project.
Yeah. Well, it's funny you should mention that, because most of our projects are funded that way by guys that are, so anal that they don't ever want to pull the trigger themselves. And I pay 12% typically. And so we've got, I've got dentists, I've got Greek dentists, I've got trusts from California, I've got retired doctors and school teachers, and a ton of engineers. And they just, like, oh yeah, I can do that. I can't do it myself, but how about we just do it with you? And it's nice to have that money available.
Yeah, it is cool. I think it works out though. Just different personalities, Randall.
Yes.
Okay, so you're doing. Remember we talked. You're doing a lot of pre-foreclosure / foreclosure stuff, if you will.
Yeah. So it depends on your market, where your market's at. So Utah has become a little bit tighter and tighter as far as pre-foreclosure has gone. But right now in our market, there's there's an abundance of properties where, you find one that they missed their payments, they're in default. You can actually go buy those properties, bring them current, avoid the whole foreclosure process, and do an incredible seller financing deals, which I really like it, because a lot of those, how you do anything is how you do everything.
Yes.
So if your finances are sloppy, that house maintenance is probably sloppy on a lot of those houses. And so I can get in there, do a seller finance, give them a few bucks, and then pick up the financing on the property cheaply at their 3.5% or 4% rate, while I go in and make the repairs over the anywhere 4 to 6 months it takes me to turn around and move a property, depending on how big the project is.
I love it. I love it. The financing. So if you're so is that going to fall under the category of subject to?
Yes.
Randall?
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yep, no, subject to. Because other than that, you're working a short sale, the banks have become more sophisticated. There's still opportunity there, but the biggest opportunity is getting the list of pre-foreclosure properties and going out and seeing what you can work as far as a seller finance deal.
Do you have a specific way that you like to target your pre-foreclosures, Randall, for my audience that don't quite know how to look for that stuff?
Well, so typically, there's no holy grail. It's been a lot of places a lot of the time with me. And so what I like to do is I like to find somebody who's, as soon as they're in the pre-foreclosure list, I want to hit them, and I want to keep hitting them until they either come off that list or, the property gets sold. Because I found that, well, we do pick up some people right away. We say, hey, you can avoid this whole process. I'll buy the house, we'll sellerify, whatever it is that we can do. Sometimes I can actually come in, bring them current, and then just turn around and market the property and sell it and make a profit without doing anything there. But on average, it's 4 to 6 touches is where my sweet spot is. So if I reached out between 4 and 6 times, that's where most people are going to respond.
Gotcha. Are you recommending doors? I know you were talking about knocking doors.
Oh, yeah. So knocking doors. So right now, Utah is a really hot market. Our median home price is about $330,000 here in the Valley. And the inventory is really, really tight. So people always say, well, what's the best way to find property? So I do a lot of things. So I sent out 1 million of these last year, which is basically the easy button.
I like that.
Did 1.2 million door hangers, which is, says my wife will help you move on there. But when it comes down to getting a deal and getting it quick, door knocking, I typically will average 1 solid lead for every 3 hours of door knocking.
Nice.
And so if you're going to get 4 or 5 of those, if I've got 5 leads, I'm going to buy 1 or 2 of those, and I'm going to list 1 of those.
That's right, because your property's right here.
Yeah. And so I like multiple streams of income.
Yeah, I was going to ask you what big most. I don't have a license. I'm just a buyer. I'm an investor/entrepreneur.
Sure.
After being in, Randall, how long were you in before you decided to go professional with it?
So it was pretty quick.
And why?
Yeah, and I moved to Utah from Oregon. I had gotten my broker's license there, but had never used it, never done a deal in Oregon, and just had it so that I had it. And I got to Utah and I started looking and I started thinking, I can't buy every one of these houses because, I can't pick them up at the ratios that I need to make it profitable. But these people still want to sell their house. And so I started talking to people. I started talking to Bronchick and a bunch of other investors. I spoke on stage with like Wendy Patton, and I found that most of the people that were doing lots of business either were agents themselves or had an agent on their payroll. And so for example, I have closed 39 transactions this year, year to date, and so that's when your average income is 10 grand a pop. That's not a bad deal. Even at 5 grand a pop, it's good. Now I have a team, so I'm not out there showing properties and doing things like that. But we go out with the intent to buy the property. We want to buy it, and I run through a sieve. I call it the 5 fingers of real estate. So every deal I look at is, can I wholesale it? Because that's the easy money. Can I flip it? Can I do a sandwich lease option so I can make some money on a rental? Can I sell or finance it and hold it long term? Or can I collect a commission? And it's the pinky is the commission. And so the last one that I look at is the commission. But I have the Ugg Buys Ugly Houses guy, Kip Roth, was down here, and he came and talked to me. He said, Randall, I'm barely covering my nut. I got to pay 20 grand a month in marketing to these guys. just barely making,
I have been there. I have been there.
And so I said, well, what are you doing with all, how many appointments you go to? He said, I'm doing 100 a month. And I said, how many are you listing? And he said, none.
Oh, okay.
So within about a 4-month period, he got licensed. He started listing those properties, and he was bringing in 20 a month. And so he was listing 20 a month on top of the ones that he was purchasing as an investor and wholesaling. So for me, it's a no-brainer. There's just a lot of money there.
So basically, it's another income stream for you.
Yes, because it's all about multiple income streams.
I love it.
So that's what I do, and wholesaling is good money for us too. We rarely go under $10,000 on a wholesale.
Mm-hmm. That's on. You're still at 300,000 ARV though, correct?
Yeah, absolutely. And I did one this year that was almost 90,000. So it's a really
wholesale fee.
Yes.
Holy cow.
Yeah.
That's sharp. Round up. Make sure I'm hanging out with Randall Wall today out in Utah. Please put your questions in if you want to ask Randall. He will answer those at the end of our keynote here. All right. Randall, I heard you mention that you like to invest in properties over $400,000 ARV. Tell me about that and why.
Sure. So there are properties that are under 300,000. There are fewer and fewer here, but it seems like even when our, let's say 5 years back, when you could find a lot of properties that were 200,000 or less, everybody can come up with that kind of money. People are operating off of fear, and really, unless you're doing the really huge numbers, and by huge, I'm talking multi-million, it's the same doing a $100,000 flip as it is doing a $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, or $600,000 flip. But I found that most people are afraid and didn't want to go above the 350 or 400 range. And so for me, that was the sweet spot because we had a lot less competition. And it's just, people are operating off of fear. They're just afraid, and they don't get it. They don't get the fact that a $100,000 flip is more dangerous than a $400,000 flip. And
why would you say?
Okay, so when you got a $100,000 flip, and let's say that you've got, if you're running your numbers, so I look at it as 80% of after repair value minus repair costs. Okay, that's the beginning of a good deal for me. Okay, so 80% ARV minus repair costs. Well, on a $100,000 property, I'm looking at what, a $20,000 profit, $25,000 profit, 30 if I hit a home run.
You still got fees though. You still have your
all the same fees, closing fees, the repairs, everything else. But if I go to a $400,000 property and my profits are closer to $100,000 on those. So let's say something happens, like I had one property that we had scoped the sewer, but after scoping the sewer and selling the property, it had a major problem under there. And so the buyer comes back to me, and I'm looking at like, okay, I got to deal with this, or I'm going to go to court and deal with it. And even though I might win in court, there's no winners, right?
Mm-hmm.
You just don't win. So if you have something that goes wrong that's 10 grand or 15 grand, like a sewer line, and I had 4 of those in 1 year actually, which is, when you're doing a lot, you're doing 10 to 15 at any given time, you're going to get a few surprises like that. And so, when those little $100,000, $150,000 homes, they can't really eat a $20,000 mistake.
Mm-hmm.
There's no room. But when you're at 400,000 plus, your profits are so much bigger that you can eat that and still be profitable.
Gotcha.
Because you're not, it's just the numbers are just so much better. 10% of a $400,000 home is 40 grand. 10% of $100,000 home is $10,000. And anything goes wrong with that property, anything you haven't foreseen, you just ate your profit.
Now, when did you have this paradigm shift in your mind and in your business, Randall?
So I was A contractor. I was in Oregon. I was the
A
largest.
GC?
Yes. Yeah. I was the largest builder in 100 miles um, in Eastern Oregon, which is not saying much because there's more cows than people. But I cut my teeth on remodels, and I did everything from bathroom remodels to hospital additions, schools, libraries, gyms, etc. But lots and lots of residential. And so I came to Utah, and I'm starting to do these numbers with my friends who are all scared. And my brother-in-law is down here, and he's working and he's doing small numbers, and he's going upside down on some of them, and I'm helping him out, trying to give him a better handle on investing. And I'm like, dude, there's no money in these tiny ones, these tiny flips, unless you steal them and can move them without hardly touching them. There's no money. Nobody is, and everybody's chasing them because everybody has 100,000. It's not hard to come up with 100 grand, right? So I said, let's start, looking and seeing where everybody else isn't running. So Vince Lombardi, one of my favorite coaches ever, said, run where they ain't. And there was nobody running above 400,000. And so it was easy for me to find property. It was easy to find property that had, $80,000 to $120,000, $130,000 profits in them that were above, 400,000.
Nice.
It was a good deal. And so
you got me thinking, brother. I'm telling you, man, when I heard you say that, I'm like, you know what? The guy's onto something with that. Because I feel like it's almost like when I'm going to these auctions, it's like, I'm just barreling through these people. I know what they're looking for, 80 to 100. It's almost like it's set, and I'm like, why not? Why the hell haven't I? Anyway, so yeah, thank you for dropping that on me, man. I really appreciate that.
Yeah. One thing that might be useful to you, I'll give you a tip. You can't use it in Utah, though.
I won't.
But a lot of those properties they've got liens and judgments on them, right?
The low-end stuff or the higher-end stuff?
Any of them. I check them all. So when I make an offer, the first thing I do is pull title, right? See what's on it.
On an offer?
And on,
wow.
Yeah, when I make an offer, I'm pulling title because I've got a direct feed to the county recorder.
Okay, you got remote access.
Yeah, remote access. So I call in my office and say, pull this baby up, see what's sitting on it, right? Because a lot of times they'll have $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 worth of liens that's sitting there, and they've got to satisfy those liens to sell me. But before I let title go and start talking to those lien holders, I go to them and I tell them I'm by B grade paper, default paper.
You're not going as the buyer. You're not going as the buyer. You're going as a Joe Schmo.
Yeah, that's buying their notice. I want to buy your lien. And so wow. I had, this was 2 years ago. It's my favorite deal, and we rarely see $100,000 properties in Salt Lake, but it was a dump. And there was 1 million investors there, but I had done a title pull on it before I went over there. And so I told him, I said, I'll pay you $5,000 more than your highest offer from all these other investors, or I'll give you $1,000. And there was two reasons for that. And so they called me up, and I bought this property cheap. I bought it for like $107,500 because it was $5,000 higher than everybody else. But it had $60,000 worth of liens on it. And so I went and hit those liens, and I just hit them as a guy that buys liens, that's buying paper, right? So I bought the $60,000 worth of liens for $6,000.
Wow.
And then I thought, I'll make the seller a deal, because I didn't even have the paper on all of the liens. And my attorney says it doesn't matter as long as something is recorded. We can make it work, right? So I told my attorney to tell him that we would take $40,000 as the payoff on all of those. So for $6,000, you do the math. $40,000 payoff, $6,000 in liens.
Pretty good.
Yeah, it's a $34,000 profit before I'd even touched the property. And I walked away from closing with a check for $34,000 from the seller to me.
Oh my goodness. That's okay. The seller, I'm presuming the first was foreclosing. Did you buy the first note, or you bought you bought the house?
I bought the house because he owned it free and clear, but he had a bunch of liens on it.
Gotcha.
He had contractor liens, bail bond liens, you name it, a bunch of small liens. And so I just ran around and scooped them all up for next to nothing.
Yeah, you bought the paper.
Yeah. And so that's why you had to pay, because at title, they got to provide you with clear title, when you go closing. And so
he couldn't come to sell it. He couldn't even come to closing yet.
Yeah. So I went to close. I gave him $107,000 and title cut me a check back for the $40,000.
Nice.
And I was out of it. $6,000 was what I'd laid out on it. So it was nice.
I'm put that under the buying paper. Because I'm getting ready to do training today on notes. Are you notes? I feel like people frown on them because it's not exciting. It's like, so to me, it's boring. Everybody wants to just be into the real estate and then into the ugly houses and all this crap. But then the notes is where the real money is. I mean, you just did that deal was unbelievable, and you didn't even have to deal with the house.
Right. So I wish I could do as many notes as I could do houses, because I'm having a harder time finding good notes here.
Good notes.
But what's really good about being a broker is agents come to you for advice, right? And so this agent came to me and said, I know there's a deal here. 4 other agents have looked at it, 2 brokers, they can't figure it out.
Can't do nothing with it.
Can't do nothing with it. The guy's in jail, it's in foreclosure, it's, and the dad, I'm working with the dad and he wants to get like 15 grand for his son and, all this stuff. And it has $600,000 in liens on it. So I looked at it, pulled up the feed, looked at the notices that the dad had got, and I realized that the second position that was willing to settle for pennies on the dollar was actually in first position.
Oh, wow.
And it just hadn't been recorded. And so they recorded properly, they recorded improperly. And so what had happened,
right? You can't fix it. There's no that, is it?
Yeah. So they took the second to pay off the first. So it was home equity line, paid off the first. So I shorted everybody else for like $4,000, the other $600,000 and $4,000. And then I called the company that it was one of those finance companies, and they were working for Chase. And so they said, hey, yeah, we'll sell we'll settle this. I said, no, I want to buy the note. And so they sold me the note for $90,000. And I told that agent, I said, you need a partner, and so I said, here's the deal. You're going to come up with the first 40. I'll come up with whatever else is needed, right? So we bought the paper for 90 grand.
Owed on it?
That was the note. And so 90,000 was that second that was actually in first. I foreclosed on the sucker, pushed everybody else out for $4 grand. So I filed the foreclosure notice, contacted everybody else, got them to settle for the $4 grand.
Yeah.
And then we were done, right? So I put 30 grand or 38,000 in repairs into the property. So I'm into it 90,000 plus the 38,000. Well, it gets better. So I sold that property for $330,000 in 3 weeks.
Uh-huh.
And then about 3 weeks after that, I got a check from Chase for $45,000. And I was like, are you kidding me? They said, no, there was an insurance policy note.
Along with.
And so since I own the note, I got the benefits of the insurance policy.
Good Lord, man.
So I'm into that for, basically, I got $45,000 on the purchase, $38,000 on the remodel.
Smoker.
And we made 200 and something thousand.
Big money.
So that notes are great.
Yeah, man. I'm actually, as I university matriculate in this business, my mentor was a note guy. And he created notes for mobile homes. He would create notes for TVs that he would finance his tenant buyer cars. And when I was thinking about it, I'm like, man, that's boring. But now I'm like, when you build up some capital, you have to get that working, as you know, to understand that. So
Yeah.
it's just a good business to kind of understand.
Yeah, absolutely. Multiple streams of income.
So I know I didn't ask you, but I got to get a land trust. I feel like you were just reading my mind when I heard some other stuff talking about your anonymity. If you touch that, why do you your name? Now I'm reading your mind. You didn't say this. You're not like putting your name on title in your business. I'm thinking that's your philosophy, but you go.
Yeah. So basically, I like using trusts because they don't know who you are, and you can look poor, and if you look poor, people don't sue you.
Yeah.
So according to the Garden St. Germain Act of 1982, a homeowner can put a property into trust for their own benefit, okay, and without the property being called due. Now you got to be careful because in some states, if it's the grantor or the settler of the trust, the original settler of the trust can put the trust aside at some point in the future, even if you've changed beneficial interest. So you want to make sure that you're up on your state, statutes and that. But I really like it because nobody knows. And the bank calls. I had one. The bank called me on one. They said, "Well, it looks like titles changed on this one 3 years ago." And I said, "Yeah, the owners put it into trust for their own benefit." Well, I'm the owner, but I named the trust after the people that I bought it from that had the loan on it, right? And so like Smith Family Trust or whatever it was. And so I said, Garden St. Germain Act of 1982 says that you can't foreclose on it when the owner puts it into trust for his own benefit. Well, yeah. So they just disappeared, and I've had that happen several times.
Have you had a subject to loan called yet, Randall? For all my people that are scared and walking on eggshells, they are so nervous that subject to police are going to go down to the courthouse, find them, and we'll call that no.
Yeah. So there's no due on sale jail, and it's not against the law to do a subject to. I learned this from a friend of mine who's John Cash Locke was his name, but he'd done over 500 in multiple states, and he'd had one called due.
1 out of 5. Okay.
Yeah.
Getting this from the experts.
So, yeah, I've never had one called due, and I've done more than 100.
I can't remember the dozens that I've done, and I'm like, I do from time to time get letters. They want to know about insurance and stuff, but I haven't had a problem.
Most of the time, I just ignore them. So I've got this one that I did on this duplex that I've held for like more than 10 years now. I'm down to $45,000, and I pay online. The guy's dead that I bought it from.
There you go.
It says you're missing information, birthday, this, that, whatever. I just ignore that crap. And I've been ignoring it for 10 years.
Up, family, please just listen to the experts. Don't take it from me. I've been speaking this stuff, forever. I just don't want people to be nervous about doing this business, Randall, when they're so nervous about the lenders coming and taking their house. Let's see, we got here. Trust, I did that. Being a servant over budget. I had you for 40 minutes already, Randall. Your definition of an entrepreneur, my friend. Give me what it looks like to you.
So an entrepreneur, I'm going to work backwards from lifestyle. So success to me is being able to do what you want, where you want, when you want. And an entrepreneur is somebody that makes that happen on their terms.
I like that.
That's my definition.
I like it. And I'm presuming, have you been, being a real estate guy is one thing. As I have learned over the years, I'm like, I was a real estate guy to the death years ago. Yeah. Now I'm turning into an entrepreneur. It looks so. When did that change for you? I'm sensing that since you're an entrepreneur now, you're not just doing real estate. When did you have that?
Junior high school. So I, all the way back, shift was all the way back in junior high school. So
wow.
I had a couple of older friends. Most of my friends were quite a bit older than me, and they'd have these little businesses doing different things. Like, one guy was making dollhouse shingles, and he was making $10 an hour back in like '76, which was pretty good money.
That's great.
Yeah. And so, so I helped him make dollhouse shingles for a bit. And then my dad was a school teacher, and so he ran the school store at his school, and he could buy candy bars for 7 cents a piece. And so I started to think about it, and I would buy candy bars for 7 cents each and sell them for 50. And so I was making $20 a day as an 8th grader, and in profit, and I was moving so much candy because we didn't have a school store that allowed candy, right? And so,
nice.
I was the chocolate drug dealer, I guess. So, and then it just went from there. I bought cars at auction, fixed them up, sold them, and I just I like being in control. I like being able to do what I want when I want. So I'm heading out next month for a month and a half. I'm going to Nepal. I'm going to work in our charity over there. I take 2 to 3 months off a year. Nice. I love it.
Real quick, tell me about your charity, Randall. It's getting more interesting to me as I learn and grow.
Sure. So we are working with slum children in Nepal. We've got about 530 of them, and they are the low caste people, and so a lot of times they don't have access to school and education. Illiteracy rate can run as high as 90%. In the country of a whole of Nepal, it's women are about 1 in 3 that can read and write, and so I am over there teaching on the ground. So we're doing it like Mother Teresa. We don't have any buildings yet, but we go right into the slums. We have groups of up to 50 kids each for our teachers, and they are so eager to learn. They don't screw around. They're not running around and goofing off like I was.
Like we are, yeah.
They're just hungry to learn, and so we've been doing it for 8 years, and we take care of healthcare and a bunch of other needs as well. But our primary focus is education, because little girls that are educated or in school don't get trafficked, and
wow.
So that's what we do.
Wow, good for you, Randall. Good. Favorite book, my friend, recommend for entrepreneurs? Go.
So I would say How to Win Friends and Influence People. It's an old one, but it's one that I have to look at least once a year, because I'm a driver, I'm type A, I can be really pushy, and I need to realize that, and have a constant reminder that everybody's favorite radio station is WIIFM. What's in it for me, and use their name. It's good to use people's names a lot, and there's just a lot of stuff that's just tried and true wisdom.
Nice. Okay, I got a couple questions here. Randall, anything else that you would leave for my audience here, for people that want to get into the real estate business? We covered so much stuff. Did we do short sales? I ask you.
Yep.
Let me just ask you. I love short sales. I know people don't really like talking about them a lot now. I don't know why. And it's challenging because you have to get over that barrier of the listing agent.
Right.
I know there's a barrier there.
Sure.
So tell me, are you, you're doing every type of transaction. Are you looking for short sales? Is that something that you have in your toolbox? Tell me about your philosophy on short sales.
So I think I said you have to be a lot of places a lot of the time. There's no holy grail. And so short sales for me is cyclical in our market. So right now it is, there's probably 5% of what there was 5 years ago.
Okay, going down.
So at the height of the market, we did over 1,000 short sales. They were everywhere. It was great. It was a low-hanging fruit. Everybody else was trying to get up to speed. And we were pounding them out.
No, that's 08, 9. No, that's going to be 9, 10, 11, or what is that?
Probably all the way through 13.
Gotcha. Yeah, because at 8, the banks. The banks really hadn't caught up with the right valuations yet.
Right. And so they weren't able to handle it. So it was great. So now now I've got, I'm looking, instead of looking at 300, I'm looking at maybe 30, at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And so there's a lot more competition on those, but they're still good because if I can go out there and say, hey, let's do it. I usually try to hit a seller 5, we do a few of those short sales, but the numbers have been so good here. We've had 20 and 30% appreciation a year for several years. And so our median home price, 10 years ago was like 220,000. Now we're at 330. And so
is it sustainable? Is that sustainable in where you are?
Yeah, pretty much, because Utah's got a few things going for it. Most of the land is owned by the federal government. And so probably, if I was guessing, I'd say 85%. And so we're dealing with 15% of the land in the state. Salt Lake Valley is bounded by mountains. And so the area of land that you could build on, live in, et cetera, because both sides, it's got mountains running around it. You've got the Great Salt Lake running for, 30 miles, up one side of the I-15 corridor. And so you combine limited space with the highest birth rate in the nation. The median age is 28 years old in Utah. That's the median age. And so there's just a lot of those things. Then you put the LDS culture, and so they don't want to leave Utah. I've never figured that out.
What's the LDS? I don't know.
The Mormons, so the Latter-day Saints.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and so that's where they're based at here, and they don't want to leave, and so that just means more and more demand,
Good for you.
So it seems to be pretty sustainable as far as pricing, because we took a hit, but it came back, and maybe it will take a hit again. I mean, to be honest, nothing is sustainable if you remove financing. So if we go to an all cash market, then we're probably looking at a 90% drop in price. That's the numbers that we've looked at. But as long as you've got financing in place, it's fairly sustainable.
So what is your opinion? I believe they're going to be cutting the Randall. Are you happy about that, or where do you stand with that?
Well, I think so. People always ask me where I think the market's heading. So typically election years are good years. And if you look at it historically, they've been strong. So with them cutting the interest rates, I can see them pushing that in, over the next 12 months or, into the election year. I would guess that we'll have a fairly stable market, because when I first started buying property, it was 13%.
The national rate?
Yes. That was the FHA rate, was 13%.
FHA, that's like 4 times. Wow.
Yeah.
And you guys really did it. I'm just like, I think about you guys, man. Pre-internet, all this technology. I'm like, how in the world how did y'all make money? It's amazing.
Pounded the streets, and in some ways it was a lot easier to do, because the ease of access of the internet means that anybody, with the internet, with a phone, literally could, dial into the county, see who's in default, do all those things. Whereas in the old days, you had to, actually drive down to the county recorder's office, find out who was in foreclosure, who was behind on their taxes, all those kind of things. So,
I mean, just how much time are you saving thinking, not both driving around looking for houses? It's just
lots.
It's mind blowing when I think about it.
But still, if you look at so if I look at my mailing list, and I work, Cody Hoffein's a really good friend of mine. He's with Sell Now and speaks all over the country. But our best mailing lists are typically driving for dollars lists. And so where you go out and actually canvass the neighborhood, look for the rundown properties, and then, look up the owner on the county recorder and start mailing out to them. Those are typically some of your most productive mailing lists.
You hear that, Roundup family? Listen to the man. Good gracious.
Knocking doors, that's, everybody wants to do it all online, but that is my single best way to find property.
Well, I remember when you talk numbers. I remember the conversation, and I'm like, I know door knocking it's my favorite, but I like that high pressure sticky kitchen right in front of your type business. You know, everybody's cut out for that stuff.
Sure. Yeah, it just depends on what you're at. So if I look at my postcards, I'm about $4,000 per transaction in marketing.
Yeah.
If I look at the door hangers, it's a little less than that. You know, might run 36 to 3,800. If I look at door knocking, under 2,000.
A lot cheaper. But
Yeah.
you said you have I remember you mentioning something, you have a complete arsenal system for getting there, almost like a mini army, I would say, with doing this location, knocking on door. I mean, did you put all that together? Or how did you have a methodical mind to say, okay, we need this one, knocking on X doors?
Well, I just, I guess so all marketing is designed to get face-to-face, right? It's a face-to-face business. Whatever you're doing,
Direct.
Face-to-face.
Direct marketing, yeah.
I started thinking about it, and I was like, there's nothing more face-to-face than knocking doors.
You're right.
And it's really pretty easy when I go, hey, I'm Randall, and I want to buy a house on your street. Have you thought about selling?
I love it.
And then my follow-up, if they say no, if the answer is no, and I've gotten more off of this than I've gotten off of, do you want to buy your house, is who do you know among your family, friends, neighbors, people at church or work that have talked about wanting to sell their house in the last 60 days? And so I did this cold. So Brigham City is, I don't know how big it is. It's small, probably 20, 30,000 people. And it's about an hour and a half drive, depending on traffic, away. And so I had a friend up there who said, hey, I've helped you out for a few years. Will you come up and help me door knock? And I thought, show me how it's done. I was like, okay. So I drove up there. It took me 90 minutes to get there. I picked him up at his house and I said, let's go. And so we started driving and I said, do you have anywhere you want to go specifically? He said, no. I said, well, heck, let's just try it right here. So I pulled over. I knocked for 90 minutes and I got two people that wanted to list. And one guy had two properties that he wanted to sell for cash to an investor. And it came off of, who do you know that might, this talk about wanting to, buy it or whatnot. And so it's just been it works.
It works. People don't want to do it.
Yeah. I don't like doing it.
I don't either.
To be honest, but successful people do what works even when they don't want to.
That's called discipline, right?
Right. Yeah.
Doing it when you don't want to do it.
Yeah.
That's cool. That's all I got, man. Let me see if you got any questions here. This has been exciting, brother. Thank you for your time. Edna Mary wants to know, do you have any type of courses? Maybe we could do a special link in our, I don't have it now, but do you have any courses? Randall?
I don't. I just don't. I should, but I don't. I used to speak with, I've been on stage with Ron LeGrand and 3,000 people in Vegas. I've spoken in Seattle. I've spoken from Maine. I've done radio for investors and agents, but I had an experience a few years back. And so I'm at this event and I got up on stage, I got off, and this old lady comes up to me and said, you were so inspiring. I went out and bought the full course. And I was like, really? Because they just, they'd have you come and speak to show people that you can actually do this, make money, whatever.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And she was probably like 75, 80 years old. So I said, how much was it? She said, $65,000.
Oh, my Lord.
And I said, how did you pay for it? She said, they had somebody there that was willing to give me a home equity line.
Oh, at the conference.
Yeah.
They're getting money out of people.
Yeah. And so I got a home equity line to finance it. I made me sick at my stomach. And so I have focused on my investor association here locally. So we do a lot of local. I've mentored Rich Dad, Prosper, Nudge, some of the different coaching companies. And I charged like 10 grand for 8 hours for those guys. But I mainly just like the freedom of being able to teach large groups and do it on my schedule versus
entrepreneur.
Yeah, versus trying to put a bunch of product out. So I should do it. I might do it. I need to do it, but I do a couple seminars a year, and that's been enough,
So if people want to reach out to you and just maybe sell your house up there, or they want to get in touch with you, Randall, what's the best way to reach you?
Facebook's pretty good, actually. It's Randall Craig Wall.
Craig.
So if you look me up as Randall Craig Wall, CRAIG.
Randall Craig Wall.
Yep. So if you look me on, that's a good way to get a hold of me. That's better than my cell phone usually. So it leaves that dime-sized icon.
Yeah. I had one question from Anthony Martinez. Hey, Anthony. He to me, what I do is I just deal insurance. We coin deal insurance. It's nothing but a memorandum of contract. Do you guys do that when you get a purchase agreement signed from your seller? If you think they might be a little squeamish or they might be on the fence to protect yourself?
Yeah, I've seen a lot of those memorandums, and in our market, they just don't. They're not as effective because people they're not used to seeing it, and everybody here knows an agent, and that's a problem.
The question mark, you mean?
Yeah,
Unknown.
Yeah, because they just don't get it. Nobody understands it. So I found I can do just about everything on a regular real estate purchase contract.
Okay.
The addendum. And so I just copy and paste the language that I want and move it over to that.
What we use is we get our sellers to sign the memorandum of a contract and record it. What happened to me over the years, people just, how sellers can be. They change their mind. They wake up the next day. They don't like Randall. They think Randall, whatever it is.
Sure.
So we record them. Matter of fact, I've had this huge memorandum release fees for me to get out of a contract. So I just teach this stuff hard. You never know. Do you have? Go ahead.
Yes. So I like that. So basically, some of our language in the addendum says that we have the right to record a notice of interest.
Gotcha.
And so that's what we do. And so if you want to try and screw us around, they've got to pay us at closing because we're not going to deal with them otherwise.
I tell people, I've been around the block a few times. I've kind of seen a few things.
Yeah.
So just do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. That's it.
So Anthony, if you want my deal insurance, just go to chrishaskins.com, download it there. Final thoughts, Randall, on new investors. Final thoughts for people getting into the game, my friend, and we'll let you
go. Take action every day. Figure out what your goal is. And if it's to be an investor, you need to take steps and say, okay, I'm going to go, listen to Chris Haskins' podcast. I'm going to go to the local investor association. I'm going to read a book. You get to the point where you know enough to be dangerous, then go out and take some action and make some offers. If you make consistent action, if you take consistent action, you will be successful.
It's almost like the action. Well, let me ask you: does the action pull you? For me, it's like if I just get some momentum, it's almost like I'm getting pulled to the success.
Yes. It's funny because I think the universe, God, whatever, rewards you when you take action, because you might be knocking doors and thinking this sucks, but you're knocking doors, and then all of a sudden you get a referral from somebody else for 3 houses, out of the blue. And it seems like when you're working, the whole universe and God is working with you.
Working with you and for you, right?
For you, right. And so, just take that action.
Cool. Roundup Day, I am always honored that you allow me to pour into your business to raise your financial literacy. Make sure you subscribe to my channel, like button. Randall, great time, my friend.
Thank you.
Yeah, talk to you soon.
Take care. Bye.
Yeah, figure out how to cut this thing off. Oh, there we go.